to the ABC Podcast.
Always be cool.
The show where your hosts, DC and BK, showcase your local business and real estate pros going gangbusters in leadership, community involvement, and just being cool.
Here are your hosts, serial entrepreneurs, mortgage experts at Summit Lending, and partners in crime, Darren Copeland and Bobby Kerr.
All right, everybody, it's the Always Be Cool podcast, hanging out with your hosts, Bobby Kerr, Darren Copeland.
What's up, everybody?
Right, ABC Always Be Cool, hanging out at the Summit Lending Studios, hanging out with a good friend today, a local Kansas City boy, a rock star all around, Mr. Chase Coffman.
Here we go. All right, born on November 10th, 1986, standout football and basketball player at Ray-Pec High School, first team All-State 3 times, won the Thomas Simone Award for Best High School Player in Kansas City, attended University of Missouri and played for Coach Gary Pinkel, holds numerous records at MU for receiving. In 2008, he won the John Mackey Award given to the nation's best tight end. He had 90 receptions for 987 yards and 10 touchdowns. In 2009, was drafted in the third round by the Cincinnati Bengals. Played in the NFL from 2009 to 2016 with a few teams along the way. Married to his high school sweetheart, Stacy. They have 3 children, Elsie, Elijah, and Hosea. Close enough? Josiah. Yeah. There we go. And we fact checked that before we got started because you just never know. He is currently an LPL financial advisor for BMG Advisors. All around awesome guy, Chase Coffman. Welcome to the show, man.
Nice, yeah.
Thank you guys for having me.
Of course.
I enjoy talking with you.
You know, I just have to say, I also won the Tommy Simone Award, but it was in 5th grade, and They did it for Pop Warner football.
Did they really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. That's very cool.
Man,
do you have a trophy?
Just finding more ways to relate every day.
Right, yeah. I knew we were going to be buddies. No, I do have it was when I was playing for the Dolphins in Little League football, and they did a big tournament and won the Tommy Simone Award.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
A little bit different years, cool. I think.
Did you get drafted by the Cincinnati Bengals in the third round?
No. I stopped playing after middle school.
Right, yeah. So speaking of growing up, so you're one of 4 children, right?
Yes, the oldest of 4.
Oldest of 4, and all 4 of you ended up going and playing D1 college sports.
Yeah, it was a huge blessing to my parents. Obviously, we all got scholarships to play D1 sports, and me and my 2 brothers both in football, all in football, and then my sister in volleyball.
That's really cool because you actually played high school football with Carson, right?
Yes. Yeah, he's a grade below me, 16 months difference. And he was the quarterback. I was the receiver and got to catch passes from my little brother. Not only in the backyard, but relayed onto the football field in high school.
How fun was that?
It was awesome. Like I said, we obviously grew up playing in the backyard, doing it all. And, to be able to continue doing it up until that level and just keep a core group of guys together and, from the backyard to winning a state championship. So exactly. A really awesome experience. Super blessed to be able to share that with my brother and family.
That's amazing, man. So 4 kids, because I know all former athletes, everyone's a little competitive, right? So did you guys ever have like family game night and break out the Monopoly board with all the competitive people, including your dad? And I'm sure your mom.
Honestly, my mom's not that competitive. She would kind of be the one that
she's the rock.
Hey, calm everybody down because dad and then all 4 of us kids were usually getting in the fights.
Yeah,
no doubt.
Right.
So dad, you mentioned dad, right? So dad had a pretty awesome career in the NFL too. Like a decade plus. Yeah,
I got to play 11 years, mostly with the Packers, and is actually in the Green Bay Hall of Fame.
That's pretty awesome. I saw that.
Today he's back up there, I think, doing like some kind of little boat ride with some of their fans up there. They paid him to go back, fly him up, and treat him well.
That's a rough gig.
They have a great alumni network and, really support the former guys as well as the current team. It's fan owned and it's different than any other organization. Not that other organizations aren't great, but they've treated my dad very well.
They're just awesome. So passionate up there, aren't they? Oh, yeah. Isn't it true that like season ticket holders, like they put that in wills and they pass it down through generations?
Yep. Pass them down.
Like 15, 20 year waiting list.
That's crazy.
And they've had a really good teams,
Oh, yeah.
At least competitive.
Exactly. Almost. Now, as a kid, would you go up there and watch your dad play?
No, he was done.
Is he done by
I think 1988 was his last year, I want to say. And I was two ish, almost two.
Yeah, he was kind of right in that window of Bart Starr had retired and Favre hadn't come yet. He was like right in that window.
You got to play with another K-Stater, Lynn Dickey. So Lynn's in town here as well. And
I haven't heard that name in a while.
Yeah, they had a pretty unique offense.
Yeah,
a couple really good players.
Yeah, for sure. Well, kind of turning to you and your career, like DC said in the intro. I mean, you had a couple stops along the way. Got drafted. Obviously highly touted. Had bit by the injury bug early, right?
Yeah, very last offensive play in our bowl game my senior year of college. Broke my foot, and that kind of led into number one, like an injury designation of this guy's injury prone.
Right.
And I wasn't really that injured in my NFL career, and I didn't play that much in my NFL career to get injured, But yeah, once you get that designation, and it kind of rolled into, working out for the combine and pro day and then, into the draft, and kind of hampered me up until training camp my rookie season, which it was just a bad start.
Yeah, that's certainly tough when you come out of the gate like that and you've kind of maybe got a little bit of a stigma. He's got the injury bug, and then you're trying to crawl out of an early hole to make sure that everyone knows that you're hardworking and that you're there to work. Yeah,
just create what you want to be, the view of who Chase Coffman is as a football player, right? I think I did a good job of just character and work ethic and those things, but you kind of get pegged into different situations whether it's business or sports. Coaches around the NFL, GMs, personnel, like they only know what they see or hear, and only one team gets to see the day-to-day. The other teams, you get to see preseason film, game film, and kind of go off of that. And that's all you can go off of. And, when you have the opportunity, when you have a need for your team, you go into are we going to pick between Chase or this guy, that guy, the other guy? And what are our upsides and downsides for those? And if there's any kind of red flags, like an injury bug or whatever, we're going to take that into consideration because we got to make an investment.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and also, talking about going back a little bit further in your MU career, obviously you were heavily recruited coming out of Ray-Pec, right? So you had, how many schools were coming after you?
Yeah, I had, I think only 9 Division I scholarships when I kind of shut it down and said.
Only 9?
Only 9?
Yeah.
Yeah, I cut mine off at 5.
I see some of the kids today with like 30, 40,
really?
Crazy.
Really?
The top kids. I don't know what, stars would equate to with inflation, but, I was only a 3-star.
Yeah.
I was only a 3-star back then. And, how many I would have gotten to offers wise, it wasn't really that important to me. What was important was staying close to home and finding a place that fit me well as a player and a person.
Right.
And early on I said, let's, look at Iowa, Nebraska, Kansas State, Mizzou. And those were the 4 programs that I called the rest of the coaches that had offered me and said, hey, this is, I appreciate the opportunity and the interest, but this is what I'm going to focus on right now because, this is a huge decision, biggest in my life up to that point.
Right, exactly. So what was kind of a couple of the final decisions leading up as you're, entertaining those 4 schools? What kind of pushed you over the edge to pick Missouri at the time?
Yeah, Mizzou's coaching staff, Andy Hill in particular, who was the Kansas City area recruiting coach, and he's now one of the special teams assistants with the Chiefs. Was a big part of getting me to Kansas City. To Mizzou. There was a lot of Kansas City guys at the time that were also offered scholarships. We had a pretty good group of guys in the Kansas City area. Blue Springs, Rockhurst, North Kansas City. And some other Kearney, and those guys were all going to Mizzou as well. And so it was kind of a lot of different things. Brad Smith there's a story that I saw recently about him and just how he changed Mizzou and, the whole narrative surrounding Mizzou and kind of woke people up to being excited about Mizzou football. And, honestly, Gary Pinkel had kind of a bad reputation in the Kansas City media at the time. And if you ask any of those coaches, they'll tell you my dad grilled them all. They're like, man, we're not getting that Coffman kid. Let's just, fine, we'll be done with him and let him go to K-State. But I did a lot of praying, did an English paper in my senior year of high school, weighing the pros and cons of all four of those schools.
That's cool.
Like I said, prayer was one of the biggest things, and kind of weighing what kind of offense, what kind of team fits me well.
Sure.
Right.
And Mizzou was going to a spread offense, and I was a wide receiver. Everybody was talking about being a tight end. And I wanted to catch passes, and praise the Lord, I was able to.
Right.
Well,
exactly.
You're talking about a couple of things that are really important to you, right?
Yeah.
Family, faith. Right. So I've got a recruiting question for you. So I think this can translate into business and sports, whatever it is. Dating someone, whatever you're recruiting them, right?
Yeah.
You mentioned those different schools that were kind of trying to get you to commit to them. What was that recruitment process like? Did some schools, and you don't have to mention them, but did some schools like really understand that family and faith was important to you, and those schools like spoke to you in a different way and really tried to build a relationship with you like the right way, as opposed to just saying, hey, we've got this and we've got all these different things, right? So as from a business standpoint, and you as a business leader, if you want to have people join your team, right? It's not just like, oh, we can pay you more. Like that doesn't move the needle. So what was that recruitment process like for you from those different styles of recruitment?
Yeah. As far as like recruiting and, you mentioned dating and relationships and even business, right? I think the first initial thing is the attraction.
Sure.
Right. Like you don't just go like under the hood and see all the other, like,
right.
We'll use dating.
Sure.
And just say like, you don't know somebody, you don't know the inside and outside and how they're going to treat you and what kind of a person they are through the good and the bad times. Initially, you just see the attraction.
Right.
And then as you spend more time, you get to know the rest of it and kind of weed out the, what you like or don't like, or, what can be fixed or what, is a non-negotiable.
Right.
And that goes again for business, that goes for so many different things. For recruiting, for me, I felt like all four of those schools were, good fits, right? Like, did I get along with the coach that I was going to spend the most time with was one of the big things. And honestly, one of the big things in my transition from, football into financial advising was or whatever career that was going to be, who was I going to be working for? Who was I going to be spending most of my time with? Who's I going to be learning from?
Right.
So for recruiting, I had to look like, well, are these coaches on the hot seat? Are they going to be retiring? And that was a big situation with Bill Snyder, who ended up retiring after my freshman year at Mizzou.
Yeah, that's right.
So, Bill Callahan was the coach at Nebraska.
Bill Callahan.
He was
also coached the Raiders, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he was kind of on the hot seat a little bit, wasn't he?
Yeah. I mean, but again, Coach Pinkel was too. And Coach Pinkel, as you may or may not know, is getting inducted into the College Football Hall of Fame this year.
That's awesome.
It was a pretty good run for him after bouncing back off the hot seat.
Well, I mean, that was quite the run. I mean, when you committed to MU, I mean, you guys started having a heck of a run for those few years.
Oh yeah. We had a lot of, again, from the top down, athletic department and, all the way down to the people that were cleaning up the weight room.
Right.
Right. Like everybody bought in and held each other accountable and did their work in a way that was, a championship level. And Coach Pinkel, I think, did a great job of making sure that everybody understood that was what was expected.
That's the direction we're rowing in, and that you better be coming in the same direction. Yeah.
And then Kirk Ferentz, who's still at Iowa and has built a pretty good legacy up there.
Yeah.
So, then it kind of went to what kind of offense, who's going to be my tight ends coach, who's going to be the quarterback or the other guys that are getting recruited, the guys in my tight end room, kind of all those things. And I took official visits to all four of those schools.
Nice.
And going through that process, the dating process, I got to know them more and more and more and more. And, eventually it came down to like, God, just lead me, because this is a tough decision.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
And you called each one of the schools personally to let them know, or each one of the coaches to let them know you weren't going to be going to the other three.
Yeah. Yeah. And I ended up calling Nebraska and Iowa and said, I'm going to cut it down to just Mizzou and K-State. And then eventually called K-State and let them know I after I get off the phone with you, I'm going to call Andy Hill and tell him I'm going to be a Tiger.
Wow. I mean, kudos to you, because that is not an easy phone call.
Kudos to me, but also, my parents.
Absolutely.
As I get older and experience more relationships, see more people in business and their marriages and the way they treat their children, all those things. I realize how great and how, blessed I am to have them in the way that they raised us for.
Isn't it amazing, as you get older, your parents got smarter?
Yeah.
They're like, oh yeah, they were right about that.
Go through that, like the bell curve, the reverse bell curve or something.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Now they're back to being golly, man, you did things right.
So Chase, like, going through this recruiting process, did you take some of those recruiting techniques and use them on Stacy to convince her to be with you?
Yeah, a little bit, but I was dating her before I started getting a lot. We'd started dating the beginning of our junior year of high school.
So talk about that a little bit. So, that doesn't happen very often these days. People, they meet their high school sweetheart. Yeah. And I mean, that would have been amazing, right? So did you have classes together? Did you guys go to church together? How did that?
Classes together. We didn't go to church together. We actually met at, I think, like an FCA or like Young Life, if you're familiar with those things. Yeah. Kind of deal through school, and had a similar group of friends and all that stuff. And
that's cool.
Like I said, there's that first just attraction.
Sure. Got to have it.
Yeah. It helps. And, me being an idiot, like, tried to screw it up a couple times. And
we usually do. Usually do.
Right. And I mean, she's been amazing. And I tell everybody, kept me out of a ton of trouble in Columbia at the University of Mizzou.
No doubt.
We got married in February after my second year in the NFL.
Cool.
That's fantastic.
After we both graduated college, and
Well, I don't believe this, but I was as we were doing some research on you, but it said that when you were younger, that you might have been a little bit of a hothead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're aggressive, you're playing sports, and for me, it was always like, when you get mad, you get better, right? You can hit harder. You can.
True.
You're all
you get that, like, motherly, car falls on top of your kid and you could lift it, like when you get mad.
Right, exactly.
The Hulk strength, right? Yeah. And we had practice in our backyards, for a handful of different sports. My dad had to send me up to my room from practice a number of times. So,
was it dad that kind of instilled that knows the grindstone, hard work, like, I would imagine in all of your opportunities and your steps along the way, you were just kind of saying, when my opportunity comes, I'm going to take advantage of it. I'm going to be ready to go. Even if I'm not the guy right now, or even if I've got this injury, I'm going to be ready to go. Was it dad that kind of instilled that in you?
Yeah, for sure. And, honestly, that you just explained wasn't really the case up until, the NFL. And that's when it was really like, it was already instilled that, that was already the case, that, like, I had gone through that. I'd put myself in that situation, and my dad never, like, pushed us kids to, hey, you have to do this. But the question would more so be, do you want to be good at this? And if so, here's kind of the roadmap that you have to push yourself through, and some things to help you get better. Right. And so it was, really, again, just like business, like you have to want whatever service is being provided.
Right.
And I see that more and more as a financial advisor, that, like, I know that I never wanted to be a pushy salesman type person.
Right.
Sure.
But in order for me to have a client that's a great client, they have to want, and also, be invested in doing their part of what we do to service them.
Sure.
Right. If we give you recommendations and you don't do it, like, obviously, we're not going to be the ones that just make you rich, right?
Right.
or get you to retirement, or whatever financial goal.
Whatever your goal is,
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't matter if you're talking about consumer facing, right?
Yeah.
Or you're talking about business with team members on your own team, or you're talking about personal relationships with the spouse. Like, somebody has to want. We're talking about rowing in the same direction, right? Yeah. Full circle.
Well, it is exactly what we always talk about in our businesses. We always talk about, when we look for people, we look for heart and we look for work ethic, right? Because if you have those two, you can teach anything else, right? Yeah. But if they don't have the heart, you can't teach them to want that, right? Yeah. And same thing as an athlete, and now you transition, you're a very successful financial planner. If you don't have the heart and the work ethic to help your clients on the finance side, well, you're really not doing them service.
Yeah.
Right.
And, thank you for saying that, very successful. I'm just a guy out here trying and, and the more you try and put the effort in, all the things that you just mentioned, the better off that you are, and the better opportunity or the better place that you put yourself in for when that opportunity comes. Mm-hmm. This is one thing that, I'll bring up about, the second team that I was with was Tampa Bay. Okay. And Greg Schiano's first year, Josh Freeman was the quarterback.
Yep.
We grew up.
But you got a relationship with Josh,
playing together, different sports, and love Josh. He's a great guy. And at the time, Tampa, I don't know what the locker room was exactly like, but Coach Schiano came in and really tried to like shake things up. And this is, the Buccaneer way, and this is how we're going to do things, which, you got to create a good culture in any environment, again, business or sports, whatever it is. And, they ended up signing Dallas Clark, who's, probably a Hall of Fame tight end from the Colts at the end of OTAs. And we went through the mandatory
at the end of OTAs.
Camp at OTAs.
So right before training camp.
Yeah. So we have like about a month off and then go to training camp. And, I'm just like, golly, this is just doesn't seem like it's going to be a fit. Mm-hmm. And my dad is just like kind of complaining a little bit.
Sure. It's okay.
It's okay. This isn't a fit, right? Like, not that I'm not going to show up, but that's kind of what my dad told me. He's like, well, it's kind of like Dumb and Dumber, right? Well, you're saying there's a chance. Right. Who knows what's going to happen to Dallas Clark, or, not to speak bad things, but like injuries or, like somebody get a wreck going to training camp, right? Like somebody got arrested the other day while, driving around while they were injured in training camp, right? You never know what's going to happen to somebody. So like back to Dumb and Dumber. So you're saying there's a chance, like you have an opportunity to go and do something for at least the first day, right? Until they tell you can't anymore.
True.
Right.
Are you going to take that opportunity, or are you just not going to go and and then wish that you just had a better opportunity?
Sure.
Right?
That's the roller coaster, right? Again, the roller coaster of emotions of just being ready. It's going to go up. It's going to go down.
Like the luck versus preparedness, right? Mm-hmm. Like nobody gets lucky. You don't just see somebody just get lucky. The lottery is a completely different thing.
Right.
Sure.
But everything else, you don't see like the 10 years, the 5 years, the work that's put in on the back end. You just usually see the final moment of glory.
Okay. So you're talking about that right there. We mentioned this, in a lot of different episodes, and that's why it's hanging in here, because it's also hanging up in both of our offices. What you're talking about is the success iceberg.
Right.
Everyone sees Chase Coffman, the NFL tight end, the collegiate All-American, but nobody sees all the hard work and the 15 years of playing, or you start playing a little bit later, but the 10 years of playing football growing up, and the sleepless nights and the rejections and the sacrifices.
Yeah. Right. Cut 12 times.
Well, that's what we always say. The word that we just can't stand around here is lucky, right?
Yeah.
Like you weren't lucky in high school. You weren't lucky in college. Like you put in the work, right?
Yeah. And, don't get me wrong. Like there's luck that goes into it, but you don't take that step unless you're prepared when that opportunity comes.
Right.
Sean Casey, I think, had a quote. I hope I'm not messing this up, but he said on the show that preparedness is the mother of luck, or something to that effect.
Right.
Like, there's really no luck. It's just how prepared were you when the opportunity came.
Right. Yeah. Well, and another one that he said, he was on the show last week, and Sean Casey on MLB, he's just fire, right?
I'm sure. I mean, this is his job, right? Sitting in
exactly. He's just amazing. But what was the Bobby? He says, it's okay to suck, but it's not okay to skip.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It's literally been my motivation every day since we got to hang out with him.
If we all have off days.
You're going to have your bad day.
If you have your off days, it's okay to suck, but it's not okay to skip.
Yeah.
And as you know, being a professional athlete, I mean, a lot of it is in between the ears after a while, right? That mental fortitude that you have to go through. And in fact, let's talk about that, just because we love to talk about leadership and helping the listeners out there on, getting better, whether it's, sports or family or work life, but kind of talk about that going through the NFL and, being through a few camps.
Yeah.
How was that? Yeah. How did that help you build up your mental fortitude?
So my brother shared this Bible verse, and I, write it on most of the cards that people sometimes people send me cards to autograph, right? Like, not that my cards are probably worth like 2 cents, right? The lowest one on the card book that
they're worth a lot in our hearts.
Yes, thank
it's
you.
in the heart.
But I write this verse. It's Galatians 6:9. It says, "Do not grow weary in doing good, for at the proper time you will reap a harvest if you do not give up." And, go into that same thing. It's like, don't grow weary in doing the good thing, the right thing, the things that are like, so cliche for me to say as a financial advisor, but compound interest, right? Compound interest works
play the long game
in so many different aspects of life, right? Not just money. And the more that you keep doing the right thing, the more opportunity for luck that you have. Right. But if you give up, right, you're going to miss that end compound interest that, if you've ever used like an investing calculator or something like that, like the end times is when the biggest rewards come, the biggest gains come, because you haven't given up.
Well, it kind of comes down to our motto, like always be cool, right?
Yeah.
Because again, always being cool, because when you're kind to people, as we know, everyone goes through different things in life, and you just never know when you're going to touch someone who might be having a bad day, right? And, the karma, the compound interest coming back to you later in life is fantastic. So just like what you're doing right now, everything you're doing on the financial side, you're just laying that groundwork for that future harvest coming down the road.
Oh, for sure. And, we have a similar, do good by doing good. That's our office motto, right?
Yeah. It's, same thing, really.
Awesome.
Like you're going to keep showing up and doing the right thing, whether it's, ultimately like giving back to you or not, you're doing the right thing for other people.
Right.
And, you say I'm a successful financial advisor and all that stuff. We have a great team, and, I obviously couldn't do it without them, probably the same way that you guys work.
Yeah, 100%.
And, there's so many things and across all different industries to know that, like, it would be silly of me to say that I know even half of it. So
sure,
we have people that are, the quarterback, the linemen, the receivers, the running back, the defense, the coach, like we have all of that. And, like you guys probably have that same thing. And most successful businesses have created that culture where everybody's bought into doing their job right. And back to sports, you hear a lot, just do your job. You don't have to do everybody else's job. Don't do 3 people's job, because then you're not going to do your job well. And I think that when you get on a good team, everybody understands that, and everybody, shows up and doesn't quit.
Right.
Like that's where it's like, hey, look, we know you're going to have sucky days.
Right.
We know you're going to have failures. You're human and you're flawed.
Exactly.
Right.
Well, and it's the same whether it's an office environment or the clubhouse, right?
Yeah.
If people love you and, pick you up on the days that you're down, it's just like in any business, you're only as good as a couple of things, only as good as the systems that you have in place. And then you're only as good as the team that you have around you. Right. And we've experienced that a lot.
As good as the weakest team member that you have, for sure.
It's true.
Own it and show up the next day.
It's like you can suck at it. That's fine, but just don't skip.
Yeah.
Right.
Don't skip.
Don't skip. Not a single day. That's absolutely right. So I actually had a question, and we've kind of covered it already, but I think if you want to add anything to it, that's fine. We'd love to hear your opinions, but whether it's financial markets, we're talking about interest rates or inflation or recession, whatever that it is, but that and football, maybe just speak a little bit about the ability to pivot. And, things aren't going perfect right now. Like you talk about compound interest, right? I think that's the perfect segue. I'm not sure. Hopefully you haven't had any clients that said, this market has sucked for the last 6 months. I'm pulling out, right? Yeah. But people do because of fear or whatever their personal things are that's holding them back. So I think whether it's the football or financial markets or whatever business, pivot, maybe speak a little bit to the importance of pivoting and not skipping.
Yeah. It's that same, like, don't skip attitude, that mentality of don't quit. But, for me, that's always been like praying, God, show me, because, sometimes I'm too much of a knucklehead that I'm just going to keep beating my head on the door and try to get through it, right? When it's never going to open. Right. So show me which way to pivot, right? Bring different opportunities and then assess what those opportunities are. Because a lot of the time when you pivot, like you still need to have a plan when you go with that pivot and just jump ship from the other plan. So to the money issue of pulling your money out of the market, like, okay, we understand that this is really messing with your mind and maybe you need to pull your money out, but let's have a plan of what we're going to do and how we're going to get back in or what the case is. Now, we don't probably pulling your money is not the best thing. Right. No. I'm going to say that. Yeah, exactly. Specifically, we can't give recommendations on that kind of stuff. This is a very broad, don't pull your money out. Right.
Exactly. Well, I think the important thing that you said was like, if you're going to pivot.
This is the small writing in the bottom of my email, signature.
Right. All the disclosures.
Yes.
Now, I would like to talk about money just real quick with you. And I hope this is okay for me to bring up. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So you know what's going to happen. Because there was a time that you had $30,000 more dollars in your pocket, right? And like you're an awesome guy, right?
Thank you.
So what was up with that $30,000 fine for running over a Ravens coach on the sideline?
Yeah. So funny story. That guy was actually one of the coaches in Tampa Bay when I was there.
Oh, okay.
Really? And he treated me so bad. So just kidding. No. So running a corner route towards the sideline, cornerback baited the quarterback into throwing it. I didn't see it either. And he came up the sideline, kind of ran through my shoulder while he intercepted it and taken off towards the end zone. Obviously, when you go and something like that happens, everybody on the intercepting team is going to rush to as close as they can, sometimes even on the field, and see, is our guy going to score?
Yeah.
As a player that throughout my NFL career constantly had to make sure that I was doing everything right and not give coaches an opportunity to say, hey, you gave up on the play.
Right.
You're always taught to chase down the play.
Right.
I kind of stumbled into the sideline. This guy wasn't looking at all and, kind of goes up past the white line that you're supposed to be behind. And he was right in front of me when I pulled my head up.
Right.
And in a split second, I said, the play's still going.
Right.
I'm one of 22 people that's in the play.
Right.
Get out of my way. I need to get back onto the field.
Right.
And, they felt like there was some intent that was malicious in doing so. And
gotcha.
Ultimately got fined. So
they clearly didn't know you well enough.
Yeah. I mean,
those damn league officials.
Right. It's a very, I don't know, like, and talk about league officials and craziness of just fair and unfair, like this whole Deshaun Watson case.
Right.
You can take either side and, facts are facts and we don't know them all.
Right.
I don't know what kind of a guy Deshaun Watson is. And I don't know what information the league has that they want to suspend him for more than the 6 games that just came down. But, ultimately, like, they're going to make their decision and, Deshaun's got to go accordingly. And whether that's suing them, I didn't have the luxury of having the status of a Deshaun Watson.
The $230 million.
But life is unfair. And, you can say the same thing about some of the owners that have gotten in trouble and, some of the higher ups in front offices.
Yeah, I don't think it's fair that the Dolphins lost their first round pick.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'm sure they had no conversations. Right. That's right. Clearly unfounded.
But life is not fair, and the only thing you can do is keep showing up. So I got fined $30,000, and I owned it, and unfortunately had to pay it.
Right.
Sure.
But I kept showing up and kept playing, and the next week, while I was kind of going through this situation of figuring that out, our starting tight end had a concussion, and I got to start for a Sunday night game against the Steelers.
Is that the game that you caught the touchdown?
Caught a touchdown pass and had a few big third down conversions and a really good game. And, I didn't turn the TV on to ESPN. I didn't check social media. I didn't do any of that because they were blasting me, calling me the worst player in the league and a terrible person. And, the guy was an African-American, so they called me a racist. He was a former military guy, so they called me unpatriotic, right? Like, you name it, people are coming out of the woodwork saying it.
In all of 2 seconds. Right?
Yeah. And, ultimately, something that my mother told all of us is, find your identity in God, not the sport that you play or anything else. And so that's what I had to go back to of like, okay, I know what type of person I am. Right. I know the intent that I had. And I just got to keep showing up and taking steps forward because this is all I can control right now.
That's fantastic. Well,
and in life, there are so many variables.
There is.
That there's only so much that you can show up and do and control. But if you don't quit, you're going to have an opportunity to succeed. That's whatever it is.
Exactly.
Or you're going to have a path to pivot to.
Well, and clearly you have an amazing mom and dad growing up, having you, because faith is a big part of your life.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about that, because clearly that's gotten through you a lot in life, right?
Yeah.
The sports and everything going on. So talk a little bit about how your faith has really helped you through your life path so far.
Yeah. Growing up in the church and going to FCA football camp and sports camp and getting kicked out of practices and all that, right? Ultimately just loving others and being loved by God, right? The more that you show people what the Bible says about who God is, right? And those values, those principles are all things that are productive and proved to be leading to a good life, right. An enjoyable life that helps you and that helps others, right? You're going to go through circumstances and to continue being joyful through those and keep showing up, right? That's a big part of Christianity. And, I'm going to say this of a disclosure, I'm not perfect. I'm far from it.
Sure.
And, if you grill me on all kinds of Christianity and biblical stuff,
right.
Some people are probably going to have way more of an upper hand in proving me wrong and what I think is wrong. So, just a guy trying, just like in my marriage, just like in fathering my kids, my relationships and my walk with God and all that stuff.
Well, it's a great foundation to have, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. You have that foundation. So if the storms come through, it doesn't blow your house away. Right? So that's
God will never change.
That's awesome, man.
So I want to go backwards a little bit. So you're talking about in that instant, I don't want to talk about the instance anymore, but with the media kind of shedding you in a certain kind of light. So you brought up an interesting thought for me. Obviously, every single day in the 24-hour news cycle that we have, especially with sports, whatever is the hot topic of that day is just going to get pounded.
Yeah.
So whether it's Deshaun Watson or whether it's you on the sideline or whatever or
Dolphins losing a first-round pick.
Yeah, whatever it is.
Stuff.
Tua can't throw the ball, whatever it is. It's always going to get magnified, good, bad, ugly. So from a professional athlete standpoint and from a collegiate athlete standpoint, how do you tune that out? Because I think it can even translate to something as small as an office, right? If people talk or there's drama, there's always somebody holding pepper spray instead of pom-poms, right? So how do professional athletes kind of start to tune some of that stuff out? Is it even possible?
Yeah. This is something I tell everybody in my, if I get an opportunity to speak to kids, speak to businesses, whatever it is, the 5 people that you hang around most is kind of who you're going to be like.
Right.
Yep.
Right. So
we kind of had a similar conversation earlier this morning.
If you hang around people that are doing the wrong thing, you're probably going to get caught up doing the wrong thing. If you hang around people that are doing the right things, you're probably going to end up, higher and better because of it. They're going to pull you up, and by accordingly get pulled down if it's the other way. So, for me, I've continually said in this, I had great parents. I had a wife that I had, been dating for a long time. I got, my siblings and a couple good friends that, I reach out to for encouragement and vice versa, give that to them when they're going through tough times of, hey, look, market's down, don't pull your money out.
Put more in.
More in. Yeah. Keep going because this is the goal that you say you want to achieve. Right. And if that's changed, then you can pivot. We'll find a way to pivot and we'll come up with a plan. But if you want to keep playing, you can't quit. You can't just not show up next week. You can't not study your playbook or be prepared for the game because then they're really going to come after you. Right. My dad was a tight end. And one thing he would always say is, look, if the ball goes up across the middle, wherever, and you're going to get hit, you might as well catch the ball because, it's going to happen.
You're gonna get hit no matter what.
Right. And, I took a couple big hits in my career and luckily never got knocked out cold, but, you learn to just take the good with the bad and keep on going.
Kind of just surround yourself with positivity is really the theme, and make sure that you've got positive people, positive thoughts, You know,
you
said people that pull you up. I'll let DC kind of, we say it on the show a lot, but.
Right. It's our elevator and basement people, right?
Yep.
Always hang around the elevator people that are going to, bring you up, take you to another level. Stay away from those basement people because, they're down there. They want to pull you and your happiness back down with them. So we're like in our circles, we're very, very conscious about our
had a
culture.
Team meeting on Tuesday with this exact conversation.
Exactly. Right. And we hold, our values true to that. Like if someone doesn't fit a certain culture, just like a clubhouse, right? Yeah. It's like having a cancer in the clubhouse and you just can't have it because you can clearly see no matter what sport it is, baseball, football, basketball, there's a lot of teams that might not necessarily have the top talent, but if they have that X factor and they work in harmony, man, they'll outproduce them.
Yeah,
right.
For sure. It's like counts, if you want to go somewhere quick, you go by yourself. If you want to go far, you go together. Right.
That's a good quote.
Sometimes it takes time, but ultimately, if you have that good environment, it's going to be so much more of a stable environment.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And the base and the groundwork has been laid to continue.
Right.
Instead of just to get far and then kind of peter out.
Exactly.
Potentially, right? Like,
so you mentioned in your last comment, in our last conversation, something about, you took some big hits, but luckily it didn't suffer, too much damage. You seem like
only time will tell. Really.
Say, your mind seems pretty clear right now. But obviously, I'm sure you've been affected with people that you've known. And I know, I think even on Twitter recently, you share a lot of stuff of Jeff Allen.
Yeah, Jeff's a good dude.
Jeff, and former offensive lineman for the Chiefs. And he has shared a lot about awareness of safety in football and losing team members and people at a very, very young age. So I know you were not allowed to play football till you were like 12, right?
Yeah, 6th grade.
So was that, and that was by design, I assume, by your parents?
Yes, my dad felt like there wasn't a big reason to play earlier than that, learning technique from the right coaches was one of the most important things as far as like putting on pads and helmets and stuff like that and actually hitting, because there is a lot of opportunity to get seriously injured in the game of football, especially like head and neck injuries. But to all the parents out there, right? Like if your kid is going to make it, they're going to have some gosh dang standout talent that you're going to notice. Right.
Pretty early too.
And if you start them in 1st grade as opposed to 6th grade, it's probably not going to be that big of a difference if they're going to make it. Now there is always like the hard work and like, these guys on the fringe that are, maybe they make it, maybe they don't, but those are the guys that, because of the work that they put in, all the things that we've already talked about, because of the work that they put in, because of the specific opportunity, right? The school that they go to and the opportunities that they get there. And, some of the different things that happen with the draft or a GM just liking them, like that's the fringe. And that's still like such a small amount of people that actually start playing the game. So I don't know that, starting earlier or later is that big of a head start in the game, in football and probably in anything.
Do you and your dad, or does your dad ever speak about the game and the differences of the game now versus when you played versus when he played? I mean, obviously if we're talking about CTE stuff and those guys, those helmets were just a shell basically that he was playing with.
Yeah. I mean, every year they're trying to make it safer and safer. It seems like, and, obviously adding another game is not safer, but that's like the risk reward potential that we all have to deal with in life, right? If you don't have to play the game of football.
It's true.
You can walk away at any time, and guys are doing that now, which is, a testament to using your platform and to go into something that maybe you do have a passion outside of football for, right? And it's not just a job for you that,
not your only identity.
Yeah. Not your only identity, but I mean, it is a heck of an opportunity and a heck of a thing that can set you apart for years and years to come if you have that opportunity. Right?
Yeah.
So Chase, what about this? Do you have any humorous stories that you can actually share, like rated G, PG-13? Do you have any like funny stories, whether it's a clubhouse or, training camps or anything like that always kind of stick with you?
Yeah, well, I mean, if you want to go in, the HBO archives and watch Hard Knocks 2000.
I was going to bring it up. I'm glad you did.
2009.
Yeah.
I was getting cussed out on there quite a bit.
Right.
And one of my coach, my tight ends coach that was doing the cussing out, Jonathan Hayes, he actually played with my dad, and that's right. He's a great guy. But silly saying that, right? That I got cussed out so much. But we were at my very, very first preseason football game. We were playing the New Orleans Saints in New Orleans. And, if you've ever been down there, there's a lot of restaurants that have open fronts to the street.
Gotcha.
And, there's usually a menu kind of outside that says specials and has, what they serve. And, hey, well, let's look at this place. What do they got? I think we'll go on inside, right? And my coach, along with some other, I don't know if they're coaches or whatever, was sitting in a table very close to that menu that was like for people on the outside to see.
Right.
And this is the night before the preseason game. So you always travel the day before.
Okay.
Night before the preseason game. Usually guys go out to dinner, especially in a place like New Orleans that has such great food. And there was some people that were looking at the menu, and all of a sudden, as I got back to our team meetings that night, my coach is telling me this story. He's like, man, you're going to be in trouble once we start practice again, because I was at this restaurant and some folks came by and they started yelling at me because they were looking at the menu, and then they see me behind the menu and say, wait, you look familiar. You're that coach on Hard Knocks that's cussing out that young man all the time. And then awesome. His mother also called him about that and said, I did not teach you to have a mouth like that.
That's hilarious.
And so he took more of it out on me, when we got back to
I bet it did.
Right.
Yeah, there's a montage out there somewhere where it's just, what the F, Chase?
Yeah.
What the F are you doing?
Yep.
Chase.
Yep.
Come on, Chase.
All that.
It.
And honestly, that was a time in my life that I had to reach back out to those people that was my support group. And
sure.
I got a signing bonus. This might be it for me. This isn't that fun.
Yeah.
Right. But you guys, Chad Ochocinco kept it lively, and he's a big part of that HBO series too.
I have to watch that. That'd be amazing. So are you and Jonathan good now? Is
everything? Oh, yeah. We're good. And, we were always good. And again, that was, a big testament to that support group that I had. Mm-hmm. Like, hey, let it go in one ear and out the other, and decipher what you do need to know and what you can translate onto the field.
Right.
Well, speaking of Hard Knocks, I've heard you say that it was really not that enjoyable of an experience for you.
Yeah, it was my rookie training camp. We're in a super hot, humid environment in Georgetown, Kentucky. You're in these dorms that are small and cooped up, and we had the 3 tight ends that were the veteran guys for almost a full week. All 3 of them were out. And it was me and rookie Darius Hill from Blue Springs here that went to Ball State University.
Oh, okay.
We were the only 2 tight ends for about a week, taking the reps of the 1s, the 2s, the 3s, special team, scout team, just getting
you guys were just getting beat up nonstop
and cussed out. And it's tough. It's really tough, right? And I keep telling myself throughout all areas of life, and as I have gotten into this career of financial advising, anything good is not going to come quick, and it's not going to come easy, or everybody would be doing it. So just like we have, gone back to a couple times, don't quit, don't skip. Right. Or you're not going to get that reward that comes when you stick it out through that stuff.
Exactly. Well, and the cool thing is now, as you being a financial planner, your clients probably don't cuss at you on TV, right? They probably don't record that, right? Yeah. That's got to be a big deal.
Especially for, young, starting your career. Mm-hmm. That's,
right. And coming off of, like you said earlier, a John Mackey Award season where, I was considered the best tight end in college football.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
And you're just getting chewed up.
Well, and let's talk about that a little bit. So, injuries, you can never plan for them. They can happen anytime, right? And, it's just like in life, people can have injuries and things come up. But, you broke your foot on, your senior year, and you were unable to go to the NFL Combine. Right.
Yeah, unable to participate in it. I was there getting poked and prodded by all the doctors.
Right. But you were still drafted in the third round, which is amazing. Yeah. So what was that like? I mean, going through an experience of going through the NFL Combine, where did you have to do the Wonderlic test?
Yep. The Wonderlic. I honestly don't know what I scored.
Right. We're not going to ask you anyway.
We wouldn't know it. I mean, I got a 36 on my ACT. Apparently that's
okay.
good.
All right.
Apparently, somebody leaks all the scores and all that stuff anyways. But, that's not supposed to happen. The fines aren't supposed to get out. That's supposed to be private information. So
always gets out.
I don't know who your source is.
Right.
Allegedly.
So, but I mean, that had to be just kind of a different experience to go to somewhere like that where they're just poking and prodding and asking questions and all the coaches.
I mean, I've never spoken to anybody about. We've hung out with athletes, and I've never spoken with an NFL player specifically about the Combine.
Mm-hmm.
So, maybe just shed some light on what that's like for a college kid.
If you have ever been to a cattle sale, cattle auction, it really is. I mean, they talk about it like that, and it really is, right? You're all there in the same outfits. I had TE number 5 on mine. They go by alphabetical order, and I was the 5th one at the tight end group.
Yeah.
And you give you your sweats, your sweatshirt, a bag, kind of the gear that you wear, and see them, doing all this stuff in, and you have it laid out, and you go from one thing to another. Doctors, Wonderlic, on-field activity, interviewing with coaches, kind of that recruiting-ish process of them just getting to know you and talk you through different things. Some of the teams, and it may have changed. This was my experience. So some of the teams, they all have their rooms around the hotel that you're staying at, and you go in and just kind of meet the GM, meet the head coach, meet the people in the office, meet the tight ends coach for me, or the offensive coordinator. And, they say, oh, well, draw out these plays, draw out your favorite play. What was it's very similar to the interview process that, maybe you guys know, or I've experienced, and just kind of try to figure out the kind of guy that you are, the kind of character, everything that they've heard, whether, hey, you got in trouble in college, right? Tell me about it. Like we had talked about my situation in the NFL. Tell me about what happened, right? I want to find out what kind of a guy you are.
Yeah, hear from you.
Because we are we're thinking about making a big investment into you.
Right.
And if we think that there's going to be an opportunity for you to get suspended doing something stupid, or, injury prone, or maybe you don't know the playbook, and your other receiver or offensive lineman or whoever you lined up to is the one telling you all the plays.
Right.
We want to know all this, as many things as we can. No stone unturned.
Well, you got to do your due diligence, right? It doesn't matter if you're an NFL team or if you're a mortgage company.
Exactly. Yeah. And you don't want to be that number 1 overall pick as a quarterback to the Raiders and decide never to read the playbook.
Talking about Jamarcus Russell.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Oh man, I had a question about the Combine. That was really good.
So I had a question for you as BK thinks of the other questions. So did you have any indications that you might end up in Cincinnati, or did you think you might end up in another organization?
That was my question, by the way.
No, so the Chiefs had just traded Tony Gonzalez, so I thought there was a real opportunity to be home.
Wow. That would have been cool.
Which would have been really neat. The Philadelphia Eagles, where Andy Reid was, they brought me in for a visit. That was the only team I visited before the draft, where I kind of went around and, got to meet the staff and see the facility, and have a little bit more in-depth interview up there. They ended up drafting Jeremy Maclin and a tight end from Florida, I think Julius Ingram. I forget his name, but in the 4th round of about 15 picks after me or something like that. So they were in the market. I think Atlanta was also in the market when I ended up there. And those were kind of the 3 teams that I thought and really wanted to go to.
Right.
I had no clue about the Bengals.
Sure.
Wow. No clue. Like, it was a surprise that they're the ones that drafted you.
And I tell this to a lot of people, because there's a lot of times where, if you watch the draft, they have like, hey, this is the team need. Mm-hmm. They need a whatever, and then here's the best available picks. Mm-hmm. And, maybe that's not the team need, but this guy's slid down the list, and he could make an impact if he fits into their system. And, I don't know what the Bengals did or chose or saw in me, but I know Jonathan Hayes knew my parents. He knew who I'd been around him a little bit as a little kid. Mm-hmm. And knew that I was a hard worker and a smart guy. Right. Did I fit the Bengals style of play? That can be argued all day, right? The AFC North was a pretty ground and pound. For sure. The Ravens, the Steelers, Baltimore, Cincinnati, with the defenses that they had and the running backs and all the stuff that they had was. I don't know that was the best fit, right? Sure. But I was there, and that was the opportunity that I had.
Absolutely.
And I'm not going to quit.
Exactly. Right.
So whether it's putting my hand in the dirt or running down on special teams or being in the wedge, which, is no longer a thing, like I'm going to give it a try, my best try.
Exactly. So who was, whether it was preseason or during the season, was some of your stops along the way, who was one of your favorite quarterbacks to catch passes from?
Matt Ryan, I think, was one of the best that I played. And I mean, that was the best connection, right? Tony Gonzalez, after the first – I spent 2 years with Atlanta. Okay. After the first year that I was with Atlanta, Tony was really considering retiring. So first of all, backing up, Tony Gonzalez, right? I grew up in Kansas City, and I get to play with a guy that I tried to model my game after. Between Tony and my dad, right? Like I get to play with this guy in his last 2 years. So Tony was considering retirement, and he kind of ends up saying, well, look, I'm going to basically stay back with my family for almost all of OTAs and a lot of training camp. Mm-hmm. So other people are going to get opportunities. And that was really my opportunity to gel with Matt. And we had a great offseason together, great training camp together while Tony wasn't there. Mm-hmm. But then Tony showed back up, and my reps went back down again.
The nerve of that Hall of Fame.
Matt's a great guy. He is a great quarterback. And, I got to play with a lot of great quarterbacks, right? Carson Palmer, Andy Dalton, Josh Freeman, Matt Ryan. Let's see, in Tennessee, we'll also put this into context of if you get an opportunity to start in the NFL, you're pretty good, right, whether you're a bad quarterback or not.
You're
Jake Locke or Charlie Whitehurst, who my dad played with David Whitehurst, his dad in Green Bay. And I don't know that this is a fact or not, but we claim the only father-son duo to throw and catch passes from each other.
That's pretty cool.
That would be something passes from Charlie in Tennessee. Marcus Mariota, Zach Mettenberger, and then went to Seattle with Russell Wilson and Andrew Luck in Indianapolis. So I got to play with some pretty good ones.
I'd say so. Yeah, and that's a pretty good lineup. Yeah, and each stop that you went, I mean, you had some pretty damn good tight ends too that you were, either competing with or you were, butting up against. I mean, you mentioned Dallas Clark earlier. You mentioned, or obviously Tony G, Delaney Walker, Central Missouri State University product, played for a long time. Jimmy Graham,
some legit.
Yeah, and Jimmy got hurt that's the reason that they brought me up there when he tore his patellar tendon. But I mean, great guys, great tight ends, and it's neat to share a locker room with those guys, and
I'm sure you got
to see what they do well and see how it could be implemented into your game. Or if it's just completely I'm never going to be as fast as Delaney, so the things that he does are not the same as the things that I do to do well.
Well, I think it's good. Like no matter what you're doing, right? You can pull pieces from. I'm going to learn something from. I learned things from you today.
How you study, how you live,
right? The people you surround yourself with, right? Absolutely,
right.
The people that you keep away,
right?
And you have to learn to do that, right?
Yeah, we actually talked about that we had a team meeting the other day talking about this very thing about. How social media is so prevalent, right? Well, you have to guard that just like if they're in the office with you, right? So if there's the negative forces around there, or sometimes not everyone's cheering for you to be successful, right?
Yeah.
So you have to have your certain settings in life and boundaries, whether it's social media or in person, to make sure you kind of insulate yourself from that, right?
Yeah. I mean, insulate yourself, but also understand the things that just don't matter. right?
That's a great point, man.
Yeah.
Like
keep going.
You can hear it, but just don't hold on to it. Like when I was younger, and again, kind of back to this, break my foot, going through the draft, combine, all that stuff. Everybody was talking about, the Chase is injury prone. Well, these are his red flags. And I didn't get to go out on the field and do the workouts to try to boost my status. Right. Like all I could do was sit there and try to get healthy and tell the coaches what they hopefully wanted to hear.
Right.
And at that point, I was young enough and dumb enough that I was like, well, I'm going to prove you wrong because you said that, this is the type of guy you are. And that's not who I am. Right. Like, who cares?
Right.
Just go with the opportunity that you have. Let them talk. Like, they create drama on TV, online, like all this stuff. Sure. They stir that stuff and they get paid for it
on
because
purpose.
it sells.
Right. Just be grateful for what you have.
Be grateful for what you have. And ultimately, you're the one that creates the outcome, right? Just keep going and take the steps, and people will know what kind of a person you are by the fruit that's come from the work that you do. Right. And, ultimately that's just a continuation into life of, just keep on the path. You're going to screw up.
Right.
Don't skip.
Man, that's
right.
My brother said this when, like Twitter, Twitter is Twitter, right? And if you don't have a picture, it's an egg. Or a lot of people have stupid pictures of whatever that doesn't show their face.
Sure.
Right. And you can get caught up all day of, getting in an argument with an egg.
Right.
Or
it just doesn't make a lot of sense, does it?
Or you can just let it slip on by and you keep controlling what you can control.
Right.
Yeah. It's tough though. It's tough to wrap your head around that, especially I think a lot of people, maybe there's in a season of your life, as we like to say, a season of your life, maybe there's not a lot of great things going on for somebody. And so when one more thing or a comment on social media pops up, it's not a feather on your shoulder that you can dust off. Sometimes it feels like a brick. Yeah. And so it's really difficult. I think that's kind of the theme to bring it back full circle, is making sure that the 5 people that you're closest to are the people that are going to, the elevator people that are going to pull you up and not pull you down.
Yeah. Whose voices matter in your life.
Right.
That's exactly
ultimately,
right.
It's true.
Ultimately, they're going to be the ones that, say the things that if they hurt, maybe they're true. Right. Maybe you need to look at your life and see, is that really truthful? Do I need to make a change? Right. And everybody else that says, anything that they want to say, like, you can let that slide. But if those people, people in your circle, if they say it, maybe there's some value to it.
Oh yeah.
Well, and that's why you want to surround yourself with good friends, because every now and then we all need a word of truth, right?
Oh yeah.
And like Bobby and I, like if anything were to come up, we can speak a word of truth to each other, and we're not going to get upset. It's more like, hey, you know what? You're right. And we were talking last week or 2 weeks ago with Sean Casey, and we're really big on our morning routines, right?
Yeah.
So getting up, starting off your day off right, doing some readings, getting some exercise in, and
whatever it is for you,
whatever your routine is,
right, and just kind of get your mental armor on for the day, right? So if something comes and pings you or negative or anything like that, it's tend to bounces off a little bit easier because you have your mind and you have your body right to start off every single day. And he has an amazing app.
I've been working with it, by the way.
It's awesome, isn't it?
It's extensive.
And I'll add this to it is, the more that you do that and are consistent in it, right? Like missing 1 day or 2 days or 3 days is not going to be a big deal.
Right.
Right. Because you're going to jump back on and you're going to keep doing it.
What's some of the things in your life that enable you to kind of make sure that it doesn't throw you off or throw you off the rails?
Yeah.
What's some of your routines?
The biggest thing is waking up and just doing morning devotion, just reading my Bible or a little devotion that I get on email or the Bible app. And that's the most important thing. Nice. And then right now I'm going through the CHFC program, which is Chartered Financial Consultant, similar to a CFP. And so I start into that reading and studying after my devotional. Right. And having kids has been one of the toughest things in my morning routine because
you have 3 distractions running around.
But our boys specifically that are 6, I mean, they've woken up anytime from obviously all through the night, but up and up for good at 5 o'clock.
Oh yeah.
Like if I get up at 4:30 and they get up at 5, it's like, like I can't get into my routine, but I've also learned to say, okay, they're up for a reason and they want their father's attention. Right. And
need it.
Want it and need it. Right. Mm-hmm. In order to have a good relationship for the long term.
Absolutely.
So for me, going back to the pivot, like, okay, what do I say is most important in my life? And are my actions, are my resources following that? And having a relationship with my sons, my wife, my daughter is way more important than having, workouts consistently in the morning.
Yeah.
And, it sucks that workouts have fallen off, but that's not the most important thing.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Right? And, I can combat that by eating healthier and I love sweets. And, I think that's something that my father and my mother have passed down to me as well. But
you might know this, Chase, but did you know that today is National Chocolate Chip Cookie Day?
You need to
we
tell
have
me
some
that.
we have fresh baked ones from Linda in our kitchen.
We got some amazing ones right over there.
Well, to take away what you're saying, yes, the morning routines are so important, just like we've outlined, but even more so, it's what's taking priority and how can you marry the two? Marry your priorities with your routine so that you're set up for success. Because even if you have a kick-ass routine and you follow it step by step, great, I hit all my steps today. Mm-hmm. But if your priorities are out of whack, how useful is the routine?
Correct.
So
that's so true.
Yeah, good. That was a really good point.
So figure out your goals first.
Yep.
And, some of them aren't going to be the right goals. So you're going to have to go down that path and reassess.
Right. Absolutely.
But, if you're doing the things that lead to ultimately achieving those goals, it's not going to always happen in the same time that somebody else did. It's not going to happen the same way that somebody else did, but you're probably going to get there, right? Or realize that it's not the goal for you, that it's not best for your life.
And then you pivot.
And then you pivot
to
the new one.
A lot of themes today. Yeah, it was really good. Chase, man, thank you so much for coming in today.
Yeah, this is great stuff, man. Is there anything that you'd like to throw out to any of the listeners?
How can people find you?
Yeah, how can they find you?
So again, like you mentioned at the beginning, LPL Financial Advisor with BMG Advisors. We're on the plaza. That's what I'm doing now. And, speaking wisdom and helping people in their financial lives, something that kind of touches every aspect of folks' lives. And I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Twitter.
What's your handle so they can find you?
Handle Chase_Coffman. And it's a picture of me and my wife with our 3 little kids right after we gave birth to our last one.
Awesome.
Probably need to update that. But
so if somebody wants to reach out to you like professionally to say, hey, I'm interested in some financial guidance, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
LinkedIn. Shoot me a message on LinkedIn. Connect on LinkedIn or hit up my email, ccoffman@bmgadvisors.com.
And that's Coffman, Coffman.
Correct. 2 C's at the beginning.
Awesome. Very good.
Man, thank you so much for hanging out with us.
It's been a pleasure.
You did a great job.
We really appreciate it.
I appreciate you guys having me. Yeah. It's been enjoyable and a lot of good things that you guys are doing that allow somebody like myself to be able to be a part of something neat.
Awesome, brother. Man. Awesome. Man, thanks for coming in. We really appreciate it. So much. This has been the Always Be Cool podcast, hanging out with Bobby Kerr and Darren Copeland and our great friend Chase Coffman. Find us on Spotify, Apple, Google playlists, as well as Instagram and Facebook at Always Be Cool Podcast.
Awesome.
Take care, guys.
All right. Take care.
If you are hearing this message, you've listened to the entire episode. And for that, Darren and Bobby thank you from the bottom of their hearts.
They hope you enjoyed this new episode. And if you did, please leave them a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever else you're listening. Please share this episode with others who may be interested in our community.
Also, feel free to let DC and BK know which business or community leaders you'd like to see covered in future episodes. Get in touch in the comments or on social media. See you next time for a new episode. And remember, always be cool.
This podcast is powered by Summit Lending, NMLS number 1850081, Equal Housing Lender.